evening. This is the February 15th Planning Commission meeting, 7 p.m. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Chase.
Here.
Commissioner Marshall.
Here.
Chair Peterson.
Here.
And Commissioner Biasotti.
Here.
Commissioner Mishra called. He will not be able to be here tonight, and Commissioner Johnson and Samut should be on their way.
Okay. I'd like to ask Commissioner Biasotti to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. You have a copy in your packet.
Through the chair, a motion that we approve the minutes for January 18th, 2011.
Thank
Second.
you. And a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved unanimously. Item 2, communications.
Two things. The first is that you could find, the people at home could find the whole packet at sanbruno.ca.gov. There you could find the staff reports, the attachments, the agenda, and all the materials for tonight's meeting. The second, I'd like to introduce the Planning Commission to Mark Zaffarano, our new city attorney. He's been with the city for about a week now and already getting to work with a lot of the planning applications. So he'll be here at the meeting, and he has a lot of experience within the peninsula, so you get to apply that experience here at the Planning Commission.
Thank you very much, and welcome, Mark.
Well, thank you. I'm very happy to be here. If any of you have any questions, you know where to find me, and the office in City Hall. Feel free to stop by, give me a ring, or just come by to say hello.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Item 3, public comment on items not on the agenda. Anyone who's here who wants to make a comment on items that aren't on the agenda, please go to the podium. And seeing none, I'll close that item and move on to announcement of conflict of interest. Are there any members of the commission who have a conflict on any of the items tonight?
Through the chair.
Commissioner Marshall.
Item 5B, I have, I work within the 300-foot radius of Don Pecos, so.
Very good. Thank you.
Through the chair.
Commissioner Chase.
Question on that, if Commissioner Marshall has to recuse himself, we only have 3, will that be enough for?
I think by the time we get to that item, we'll have another commissioner.
You only have to
But
open a meeting with a quorum, as far as
Yeah,
I know.
It's maybe enough anyway.
Well, through the chair, you have a quorum to open the meeting. If Commissioner Marshall needs to recuse himself on item 5B, that's fine. We can take that up later and see if another commissioner comes in the meantime. But you can participate on 5A, is that, we have a quorum on 5A? Okay, very
Do we
good.
need a quorum to address 5B?
Yes, you do.
Could I ask staff to see if they can find out what's delaying the other commissioners? Thank you.
Or through the chair, if you can ask staff if I could sit in on that meeting. Since it's just my employment that's at close, I'll be happy to if it's legal.
So in order to determine whether you do or don't have a conflict, I'd be happy to chat with you separately about that. If you'd like, we can take a break
We can wait
between
to see
items.
if another member comes, we won't worry about it, but if another member
Right.
doesn't, we can take a break and
Very good.
go through.
Very good. Okay, with that, we'll move on to item 5A, which is 1301 Santa Lucia Avenue, a request for a use permit to allow an addition which increases the gross floor area by greater than 50% cumulatively, which is actually 121% for sections 12230B1 of the San Bruno Municipal Code. Staff report, please.
Thank you and good evening. As stated, the applicant has applied for a use permit to construct an addition that increases the floor area by greater than 50%. The subject site is located on the corner of Santa Lucia Avenue and Balboa Way and is currently developed with a 1-story single-family dwelling. The project proposes a 1,440 square foot addition to the first and second story. The first story would be remodeled and expanded to create a more open floor plan Additionally, it will accommodate a new 2-car garage and an internal stairwell that will connect the first and second floor living areas. The second-story addition will contain 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. Additionally, it will also contain 1 office. The project would result in a home that amounts to 2,637 square feet and will contain 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, and 1 office. The Architectural Review Committee did review the proposal at their January meeting. At that meeting, the Architectural Review Committee forwarded the project onto the Planning Commission with a favorable recommendation. They did have one minor recommendation, and that was to add more detail to the front entrance, which the applicant has done so. They have increased the width of the porch and added a guardrail feature as well. Regarding the use permit entitlement, it is important to note that the request before us tonight is strictly for a 50% expansion. The addition is meeting all other development standards. It's meeting the FAR requirements, lot coverage requirements, setbacks, and height standards. Staff does support the project. We do find that the second story is well integrated with the existing single-family home. The architect is utilizing second-story setbacks from the first story below, which is a recommended facade articulation technique within the residential design guidelines. Additionally, the applicant will be utilizing hardy plank siding, and horizontal siding is a common feature within the neighborhood. All window and door trim will also be consistent on all elevations. I would like to point out that staff did receive a number of comments from the neighborhood. When we originally sent the courtesy notice out when the project was originally submitted in April of 2010, an adjacent property owner on Balboa Way expressed concern with the second-story addition and felt that the second-story addition was going to block his view of the tree-lined streets to the north. Staff did explain to the property owner that the City of San Bruno does not have a view ordinance, that the second-story addition was meeting all setback and height requirements, and was utilizing a 312 roof slope, which minimizes the overall height of the structure. Since that time, the applicant has revised the southern elevation to include more articulation. Specifically, the second story is now stepped back from the first story below up by 1 foot, and the applicant has also introduced a more consistent window pattern on that south side elevation. That property owner is no longer concerned with the addition, is in support of that revised southern elevation. Additionally, staff recently met with 2 property owners discussing the details of the project. I actually met in person with those property owners and discussed all the details, development standards, everything. The property owner adjacent directly to the rear did express some concern regarding privacy impacts. However, after meeting with staff and realizing that the second story was set back 8 feet from the first story below along that, I believe, the west elevation, she did not have any issues with the addition at that time. With that, staff does recommend that the Planning Commission approve the use permit request, subject to findings of fact 1 through 7 and conditions of approval 1 through 24 within the staff report. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you very much. Does the commission have any questions? Commissioner
Just
Marshall?
real quick, and I know it's a minor thing, but on condition 23 on the hardwire smoke detector, should we start including this hardwire smoke detector plus CO detector? Is that the January 1st requirement, correct?
Yes. It will be required anyway, so yeah,
Right,
we
but
should
we should
definitely
probably
put
put
it
it
in
on here.
conditions.
Just on the boilerplate stuff?
Yeah, we can update that condition.
I'd like to ask staff if you've considered the condition that I commented at the last meeting about groundwater and surface water that could enter the ground and pass under a property.
We could add that language to that specific condition if you would like.
Okay, but please send me a copy of it when you come up with it.
Okay.
As I brought it up, I'd like to see if you and I had the same understanding.
You can definitely do that.
Thank you very much. Any other commission questions for staff before the public hearing? Okay, with that I'll open the public hearing and ask the applicant please to come to the podium first and give your name and make any comments you'd like to make on the application.
My name is William Lim, and I'm the architect for Alice Young. And I think Matt did a great job describing the project, and I would just like to add that we've worked with Matt, I think, more than a year on this project, and we've looked at various floor plans and elevations, and we've looked at the building setback and the configuration of the property. As you know, the property has an unusual footprint. It's not a straight rectangle by any means, and we had to get a survey crew to survey the property. So we pretty much put all that to rest, and I think that the owner is committed to meeting all the design guidelines, and we certainly followed all that in designing this project. So if you have any questions, I'm here to answer that, other than...
Thank you. Any commissioner questions for the applicant?
If you, excuse me, I'm sorry. through the
Commissioner
chair.
Chase?
You're familiar with all the conditions of approval and all that, and you're in agreement with everything there? You've seen it all?
Yes, I have seen it, and I've read through them, and there's nothing unusual in there that I can see.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Are there any other members of the public who'd like to comment on this application? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and bring the matter back to the commission for discussion.
Through the chair,
Commissioner Marshall.
I move that we approve use permit 1007 based on finding facts 1 through 7 and revised conditions approval, conditions of 1 through 24.
Second.
Okay, on the question, I'd like to comment that I think staff is, with each meeting, doing a better job on the write-ups on the applications, and it makes it possible, if members of the public here don't realize it, makes it possible to make a judgment without having to ask a lot of questions, because so many are answered. With that, I'd like to call for the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously, and there is a 10-day appeal period.
Through the chair, I ask if we take a 5-minute recess so we
Yes.
can discuss.
Or through the chair, what we could do is, there was a gentleman here who was going to make a presentation on solar equipment.
Good idea.
We could take that now. Commissioner Samud is on his way. He should be here in about 5, maybe 10 minutes, and that'll allow ample time for the presentation.
Okay, I'll take that suggestion and move item 6B to be considered next, which is an informational presentation on solar power.
My name is Colin Swan. I'm the founder and CEO of SkyTech Solar. I'd like to thank the Commission to give me an opportunity to talk about something that's dear to the solar community, and that is, when cities start adopting really positive policies towards renewable energy within their community. Most of this, there's 2 parts to this presentation. One will be about talking about a successful approach to clean energy, and the other part is just to talk about some of the latest things that's happening within solar as far as the products that are out there. I'm using San Francisco as an example. 2.5 years ago, they came up with a policy and said by the year 2017, they want 51% of all the energy used in the city of San Francisco, city and county of San Francisco, to be from renewable energy. And what that means is no energy that's made up from fossil fuels or nuclear energy. It's a hefty goal to get to, but one of the aspects of it that they had was called Go Solar San Francisco, where they actually, it's very difficult in an economy like now to put money into a budget to try and do this and make this happen for your city, but every year for 10 years, they have to decide on whether to put anywhere from $2 million to $5 million into this program, and that's used as funding to help people and assist people and to be able to put in solar. And it really was the turning point for a lot of people in San Francisco to say, what, that makes a huge difference for me. I'm going to put in solar. Prior to this, there was, solar's been around for a long time. Prior to this, I think there was like somewhere around 750 homes had solar, or homes and businesses combined had solar. Within the 2.5 years that we've had in there, we have 1,577 applications for solar, and When you think about it, that's basically tripling what we had done in the last 20 years in the space of 2.5 years, just by putting in between 2 to 5 million a year. Our company ourselves, we focus on, well, the money that's in there, it basically goes towards, you can be a nonprofit business, you can be just a regular business, you can be a residential, and then the residential is split up between what they consider low income. Now in San Francisco, what low income means, you could be a person making $62,000 or less a year, you're considered low income. I know it's a lot higher than the national standard, but the cities, when they're adopting policies, they could think about if they want to split up the funding that they put into it, and San Francisco did it that way. Quite a lot of the funding goes towards the low income end of the city, and we specialize in investing in, or installing in there, and we have, in the last 12 months alone, installed solar for free to 125 households in San Francisco. We are able to do that by using the funding from the Go Solar program and from the California Solar Initiative. Right now, everybody in California, if you look at your PG&E bill, you'll see there's one of those small print fees, it's $1 every month. You're contributing towards it, and you can draw from that. It's not a lot of money that you get from California. Roughly 5% of your solar system that you purchase today, you'll get a refund from California. In total, they've paid so much, they've done $9.53 million. That's what the city's paid out to date over the 2.5 years to install this. And when you consider the benefits of what they did and the huge volume that they've had of people putting in solar, it's not too huge a price to pay. But there's a lot of other benefits. And when a city decides on what you want to do as far as installing, coming up with a solar policy for your city, you start thinking about, okay, if I'm going to hand out this sort of money, I want to see other benefits come back to the city. And so what San Francisco did was, they have generated 4.11 megawatts. It's worked out to be roughly about 12.1 cents per kilowatt hour. If you look in your PG&E bill, you'll see the baseline rate is roughly about 9 cents per kilowatt hour, and this is in the first year. So the cost of it is not that expensive. Solar panels, by the way, are guaranteed to last for 25 years. Like when you buy a television set, you get a warranty for 1 year. They're warranted for 25 years. As your TV set, will probably last 4 to 5 years. The panels probably will last a lot longer than that. They will go down in performance, but they're guaranteed a certain performance up to 25 years. So the return on investment is quite good, because if you think about it, let's say in the last 30 years, you're looking at a guarantee for 25 years. In the last 30 years, there's been PG&E basically, on average, are charging our consumers about a 6% increase per year. That's what it's averaged out at. So the other thing is to look at is the renewable energy credits. These are, as time goes on and as nations, and especially as America starts, getting more into this carbon trading and so forth, they're going to be worth something to the city. So, it's something that you might want to pocket for a rainy day. Right now, 2.6 megawatts doesn't sound huge, but it's currently worth about $65,000. Not a lot of money, but I expect that will increase later on. And then the main thing, and I think this is the best thing, is the job creation, especially in an environment like now. If you want to have access to this funding, you've got to hire unemployed residents of your community, of the city, and then you've got to train them in green-collar jobs. And in the 2.5 years, there's been 71 jobs created. And this is great. Ourselves, we hire from people who are unemployed from the construction industry. A lot of people after the bubble burst, been unemployed for multiple years, and this gives them a new place to go. So your community and the people that live in your community have a new occupation, a green collar job. They're able to hopefully be able to use those skills going into the future, and they won't find themselves unemployed again. And that's basically the program. What I want to do now is kind of talk to you a bit about how solar's changed over the years. From what you see there, the railings that are there, they're always about 3 inches above the rooftop. Now the railings and the panels always, for safety reasons and for fire reasons, have to be 3 feet away from all edges, just in case there's ever a fire in the house, the fireman can actually get up on there. What you see, those little boxes in between those railings, they're called microinverters. Years ago, you used to use just, and today, so a lot of companies still do it, you use just one main inverter so that the DC power gets converted to AC power, which is usable, and it's usually in your garage. The only problem with that setup is that if one panel becomes obstructed by sun in any way, like Christmas tree lights, you take out one light, all the lights that work. So you're not getting the high efficiency from all of your panels. But using these microinverters, that helps you greatly and be able to make sure that each panel works independently of the others. And that's what it looks like. Then the panels go on top of the racking system. They're connected to those little boxes, which are the microinverters, and this is what it looks like after it's installed. Now, previously, actually, that's obviously on a tilt roof. The angle of what you do, it depends on the size, on the tilt of the roof. This is on a flat roof. You'd always want to have your panels facing 180 degrees south. That's where you're going to get the most sun. And as you see those standoffs, we always face at about 15 to 20 degrees tilt. So it's an optimal tilt to try and get the most sun. And you can have any sort of configuration. Now, as you see there, there's like 5 panels. And a lot of companies do, we use, panels are getting better and better as time goes by, but some people will look at 2 roofs and they'll see on one roof they'll see 10 panels, and see on another roof they'll say 5 panels, and say, well, obviously the 10 panels are going to produce more than the 5 panels. Not necessarily. These are 240 watt panels. Therefore, if you're looking at a roof with 10 panels, and each panel was only 100 watts, the 5 of these 240s will obviously work better. So when you're judging stuff and you see things on roofs, don't judge just by the way it looks. Start thinking about, how productive are these panels. This is actually on an old synagogue in San Francisco, and we just put it in there because we thought it was really interesting that they asked us to put in solar. This kind of shows you it can be a bit dangerous work, but you got to use harnesses. You got to be, if you're. This actually is a girl called Destiny is hanging there with San Francisco in the background, and but as you can see, it's quite at a tilt, and now it's the finished job of it. As you see, it's very tilted roof, but also, as you see from the bottom there, we're away 3 feet so that the firemen never have to get up there. There's another roof here. Oh, actually, this is in San Bruno. This is Rick Posadi's, Planning Commissioner Rick Posadi's house. He had met up with us in San Francisco. We were working on one of his tenants, or one of the houses he has there. And anyway, he asked us if we were interested in working here in San Bruno. And we put in quite a large system here. It's 18 240 watt panels, 25 240 watt panels, 18 on one side of the house, 7 on the other side of the house. As you can see there's the 2 sides. And it basically will produce, it's about 6,000 kilowatt, or 6,000 kilowatt system, but after when you factor out the change and whatever, you always lose about 5%. But it's quite a large system, and which brings us on to a point. PG&E, how your system works with PG&E. Basically, when we met with Rick, we said, okay, let's take a look at your PG&E bill. And we said, well, you don't need 25 of these. And he said, well, actually, I want to expand on a few things. So I want to have more energy than I'm currently using. So we asked, he said, is that possible? I said, in fact, it's possible. PG&E, there's a law that California enacted that PG&E, if you produce more energy than you use, PG&E has to buy that from you. So in reality, you are contributing to PG&E. And in reality, you will be paid by PG&E, but it's until the city and PG&E decide on the exact price they're going to buy that energy from you, you just have to wait until then. Right now, it's just credits they're giving you. And it's quite interesting to think now that homeowners can actually be a supplier to PG&E. Even if you're not using as much energy, or even if you're not producing as much energy as you're using, the way it'll work is that these panels here, there's going to be a line going down right into the garage. It'll be hooked up into your circuit breaker box, your meter, and PG&E will come out and they'll put in, it's not a smart meter, it's called a bidirectional meter. They'll swap out whatever meter you have, they put in a bidirectional meter. It counts all the energy that you're producing from your solar, and then it counts how much energy you're taking from the grid. So even if you're taking more energy from the grid than you're producing, you know that your neighbor is probably going to get that clean energy from you. At the end of the month, you get your bill like you usually do. We'll show you how much energy you've used. It'll then deduct how much energy you've given them. And then at the end of the year, they call it net metering. They add up all the months, because some months you're going to be producing more energy than other months. And then you pay the difference, or PG&E pays you. And that's basically it. Any questions?
Yeah, through the chair.
Commissioner Biasotti.
Where does San Francisco get the funding currently for that program, the Go Solar program? Is that a federal grant?
It comes out of the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission. So they are given a budget each year. And 2.5 years ago, it was decided upon that no matter what the budget was, $2 million to $5 million had to come out of their budget. And that's basically where it comes from. Now, it's assessed and given to them, obviously, by the city, every year, what the budget should be, but the city told them $2 to $5 million that has to come out of that. So it's the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission is the place. And the politics behind it, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have a similar situation in San Bruno, particularly because SFPUC has huge power generation resources in the mountains.
Right.
So they make quite a bit of money themselves.
Right.
Maybe they can afford it.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it's a very, it was a very interesting thing for them to do that. And that, you know, when I actually got into the business because, surprisingly enough, I was actually in Canada when I heard out about, I live in San Francisco, that San Francisco were doing this. And I said, you know, that's the tipping point. Because with that money in there, that's the tipping point for the average person to say, you know what, now it makes fiscal sense for me to do this. And because the payback's quicker. You know, before you were talking about 8, 9, 10 years before you saw payback. Now, you know, they brought it down to like 5 to 7 years. So I actually got into the solar business based on this program because I just knew that's the tipping point. I always knew there was a price problem. And that's true. A lot of cities, especially at these times, don't have the funding to do something like this. But you know, it's something to think about when times get better. Maybe it's something you start looking. And also, when you think about it, you know, if you're doing job creation as well, you know, you're giving back to the community. You're taking people who, you know, aren't contributing to society just due to circumstances that they found themselves in, and suddenly now they're contributing and they're able to sustain their families and so forth.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions by the commission? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Now we'll go back. The next item on the agenda is now 5B, the item which Commissioner Marshall is recusing himself. It's 461 El Camino Real. A request, a environmental determination is a categorical exemption. Request for a conditional use permit to allow alcohol beverage sales in conjunction with a restaurant per section 1296 110C5 of the San Bruno zoning ordinance. Staff report, please.
Do it from down here. Well, thank you. I think everyone on the Planning Commission knows this business well. It's Don Pico's. It's been there for nearly 3 decades at 461 El Camino Real. And what that is, it's one half of a commercial building. They're both about 3,500 square feet each, making a total of about a 7,000 square foot building. On the north side of the building is Don Pico's, always has been. On the left side of the building was a business called Cleo's Brazilian Steakhouse. That steakhouse outgrew that location and moved downtown to a bigger location and is doing business now down there now. This gave Don Pico's the opportunity to expand into this space, something they've been wanting to do for a long time. It's a very popular restaurant, both a local draw and a regional draw, and they needed more room, so they took this opportunity to expand within this commercial space. This has already received a building permit for the tenant improvements, received an architectural review and facade improvement grant for new facade improvements. But now it's before you tonight because they're proposing to expand the on-site alcohol use within the business. As the Planning Commission knows, we adopted an ordinance about 5 years ago which required that any business that serves beer, wine, or hard liquor for on-site consumption needs to get a use permit through the Planning Commission, whether it be a bar or a restaurant that's serving that. Don Pico's was grandfathered in because they had been in business for so long, but now that they're they're basically for 2 reasons, proposing to expand into another space, expanding the alcohol use, and also going from a beer and wine to beer, wine, and hard alcohol requires the Planning Commission approval. All the Planning Commission or all the departments, including the police department, reviewed this, have placed conditions of approval in here. Standard operating hours for this, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and the standard conditions of approval are within the staff report. So I could take any questions at this time, and the applicant is also here to answer any questions.
Any questions by the commission for staff? I have a question. The parking there is fairly famously difficult in that you can drive in, but it's very difficult to drive out, and frequently cars are seen backing onto El Camino Real, which is a pretty heavily trafficked street. When there's an application for alcohol beverage sales that increases the intensity of use of alcohol, it makes me wonder if there isn't a nexus there for looking at that parking and finding, is there a way that the parking can be utilized and have a better exit method than backing onto the street?
Well, the nexus question, I think, I think the first question is whether or not there's a better solution there. And, we've looked at this before, and the applicant's actually looked at this before because he's run a business there for 30 years. And,
Right.
I've talked to him directly about, hey, it is a dangerous situation. The problem is that you have one business, Tabor Guns, that it's a shared parking lot between the two, and there's just not enough width with the whole lot to be able to have perpendicular parking, 90-degree parking spaces that someone could back out and then come face forward out of the Don Pico's parking lot. So people do have to go in that angled spot and then come out.
They have to back out
They have to back out.
because, so the city, I'm surprised the city accepts a safety hazard like that. As a practical matter, I've pulled in there, and if you back out, drive down to the end, turn one way, back out, you can turn and get out of there.
Yeah, you can. I guess it depends how crowded the parking lot is
And how it's striped and what the functional intentions are.
I mean, what we could do is, our engineers have looked at it before, but I could get a fresh set of eyes on the parking lot and see if there is anything we can do to reconfigure it. I mean, I don't know if it's appropriate for a condition of approval here, but it's something that I think the applicant would be open up to if we could resolve a problem that his customers have been having.
It doesn't do the other business any good either to have, it's a situation, if you go in there to park, you're happy as long as you're buying products or eating food, but then when you go to leave, it can be very difficult. All right, any other comments,
Through the
questions
chair.
of the commission? Commissioner Chase?
I'd just like to reiterate what Chair Peterson said about, the parking. That was one question that definitely stood out in my mind, is that you're doubling the size of the restaurant, and yet you're not increasing any parking spaces. And, I don't know, do we normally, do that for, that's not the norm, if I'm correct.
Well, the slight difference in this case is that Cleo's was already a restaurant. So he's taking over existing restaurant space. And Cleo's, what was actually part of the difficult situation is that Cleo's and Don Pico's shared those parking spaces. So now it's all still restaurant space, it's just one tenant versus two tenants. But you're right, let's say if it was going from restaurant to retail, we couldn't allow it because of the parking requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Any other commission questions?
Yeah, through the chair. Just as a general question, if the applicant were moving into the new space and just wanting beer and wine, continuing the liquor license, would they be before us today, or is this because of the fact that they want to use hard alcohol?
Yes, because of the fact that they didn't have a use permit before and they're expanding, and because of the hard alcohol.
Thank you.
Any other commissioner questions? Okay, now I'd like to open the public hearing, ask the applicant to step to the podium and make any comments you wish to on the application. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mel Phillips. I live on Cherry Avenue. I'm a construction consultant and general contractor for Don Pico's. In the time that I've been working with Don Pico's on this particular project, we have complied with all the stipulations presented by staff, by the FOG committee, the FOG jurisdiction that handles the grease trap assignments and the fat oil and grease containments that go into piping, and we intend to fully comply with everything that staff has recommended.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions from the commission for the applicant? Hearing none, thank you very much. Anyone else here like to speak on this item? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing, bring the matter back to the commission for discussion or a motion.
Through the chair.
Commissioner Chase.
I'll make a motion that we approve use permit 11-001 based on findings of fact 1 through 5, subject to conditions of approval 1 through 18.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Biasotti. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. There's a 10-day appeal period. And moving on to the next item, 6A, city staff discussion.
Need to select members for the March 10th Architecture Review meeting. Commissioner Biassatti?
Wait.
No, you're
Won't
not
be
gonna be in town.
Oh, that's right, you're not
I
going
won't
to
be here,
in
I'm
town.
sorry.
You in town, Commissioner Marshall?
There's only 3 of us left.
Well, what I could do is,
can-
okay, Commissioner Marshall, and I'll give Mary Lou a call as well as Suge and see if they could do it. If not, we'll be calling each one of you to see if you get backfill.
Very good. Is there any planning commission discussion?
Through the chair. Just a
Commissioner Marshall?
question, Aaron, I don't know if you even know or not at this point, but with the redevelopment money that is supposedly disappearing, had a question from somebody on that. If somebody is already working with the city and has been approved for redevelopment money, is that money still there for them, or is it gone, or is it, where are we at with all that?
The way that the legislation or the governor's proposal is currently, if there's an existing contract to do something, you're able to honor those contracts. So yeah, if we have a contractual obligation with someone to say for facade improvement, then yes, that money could be spent on that facade improvement. But the problem is we don't know all the exact details yet, how it's actually going to flush out, because the legislation hasn't actually been put forward yet, and the governor's proposal has just been vague at this point.
Thank you.
Any other planning commission discussion? Okay, hearing none, move to item 7, adjournment, and adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much.